Hello, everyone. Hope your October is going well. When you see this, it'll be 3 days. Yeah, it'll be October 3rd. And my October's been going pretty good. Nine, wait, 8 days until my birthday when you see this. Yeah, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, I'm very excited. I didn't get the day off, but I'm going to do some fun stuff before that. So, you gotta do what you gotta do. So, we're here to talk about a book. But before we get to that book, as always, what if What if I ruled the world? Poems by my music. I don't know the title of my own book, written by me, myself. Oh, I have a mini book update. I have outlined the first 5 chapters of my next book, so gotta start that. I want to start this year. It probably won't be released this year because I don't know how long I'm actually gonna make it. And I'm redoing the character descriptions, so I'm gonna redo the character descriptions before I actually start writing. Um, because I really do want to do that, but also I might be procrastinating just a little bit. And it'll be my first fiction book because this one is poetry, and that'll be exciting. So I'm gonna aim for next year. Not gonna give too many hard, like concrete dates because yeah, no, it'll be there when it is there. Because this one, took a while too. But yeah, so check me out. Check out my book and stay tuned for the updates for the new book. So we're here to talk about The Weight of Blood, which is a young adult and horror novel by Tiffany D. Jackson. And before we get into the book, like what I think about it and all that stuff, I'm going to tell you about. I'm giving you the biography of Tiffany D. Jackson. She's an American author and filmmaker. I can talk. She writes young adult fiction and makes horror films. She's best known for her debut novel, Allegedly, which is about a teen who is accused of having murdered a baby when she was 9 years old and finds out she's pregnant while living in a group home. And that sounds really interesting. I would definitely read that. It was published in 2017. Um, she conducted research for the novel by talking to lawyers, doctors, social workers, correctional officers, group home supervisors, and detectives, but still couldn't find. She obtained concrete answers as to how the justice system works in the U.S., referring to how crimes are judged regardless of severity. So I guess this was her exploration of how the justice system works. But even through her research, it wasn't satisfying for her. And then her second novel was Monday's Not Coming, about a girl whose best friend mysteriously disappears, was published in 2018. And it's inspired by numerous disappearances of black girls across the United States. So that's very relatable and sad. We don't always get looked for, but unfortunately, that it is what it is. And then her third novel, Let Me Hear You Rhyme, was set in 1998, is about three teens from Brooklyn who turn their late friend into a rap star. And that came out in 2019. And yeah, so all of these, three of these books have got like high reviews, it says on the Wikipedia page. Okay. I don't want to name all of her books. I just realized I put like the first six, I guess. Okay, let me get to something. And she's also released some picture books, like I guess children's books would they call it picture book, but it's called Santa in the City. About a girl determined to prove Santa is real. That was released in 2020, and then she has another illustrated book from 2021. And what is that one called? Oh, Trick or Treating in the City. So that's kind of cool. It kind of seems like a little series, so I would look into that. I like reading children's books too. She was born in New York and grew up in Brooklyn Heights. She states that she first started wanting to become a writer when she was 4 years old, so that's cool. She attended Hendrick Hudson High School, say that 5 times fast, and Howard University, where she studied film and ultimately moved back to New York to obtain her master's degree in media studies from the New School. And now she lives in Brooklyn. So that's a little bit about the author. The book was published in September 6th, 2022, so pretty recently, 3 years ago. The synopsis is it's set in a fictional sundown town of today I cannot talk. Springville, Georgia. The story follows Maddie Washington, a biracial high school senior who has been forced by her racist father to hide her ethnicity, passing as white and straightening her hair. Uh, When a rainstorm leads to her hair reverting to its natural form, her heritage is revealed, and a viral bullying video exposes the racism at Springville High. In a bid to salvage the school's reputation, a popular and high achieving Wendy Quinn convinces her black football star boyfriend to take Maddie to the prom. However, a revenge prank pulled by one of her bullies on prom night humiliates Maddie, setting off a chain of events that destroy the town and leave her classmates dead. I feel like that kind of tells you the whole story. Even though I feel like there are like extra details, but I'm like, it's kind of the whole book. But anyway, that's the synopsis that tells, I think, a little bit too much, but it is a reimagining of the book Carrie, which I talked about by Stephen King. I also watched all three of the remakes. I did not watch the sequel to the first movie though, because I was like, I'm not gonna do that to myself. But maybe one day I will watch it. I don't know if I'll review it though, because I feel like the first one was the best one. So I'm like, I don't really feel like you should. You don't have to watch any of the other ones. Although, after reading the book, the second one with I forgot her name, but she also played in another movie that I reviewed called May. I think her name was Angela Bettis. She does. Oh, she's really great in that. And that second adaptation was like a TV movie, and that was like the most accurate, but it is the longest. So you kind of gotta weigh your options. I feel like the first one is the best, but the second one is the most accurate, and then the third one with Chloe Grace Moretz. I'm like, nah, don't even worry about that one. So yeah, so that's a little bit of that. And then I'm going to go to the characters. So the main character is Madison Maddie Washington, a shy, telekinetic, biracial girl who has been forced to pass as white by her father for the majority of her life. And then Thomas Washington, Maddie's abusive, racist father, who forces her to pass as white. Kendrick Kenny Scott, a black football star and Wendy's boyfriend who takes Maddie to the prom. Wendy Quinn, Kenny's girlfriend and Jules' best friend, who asked Kenny to take Maddie to the prom in order to look selfless, which, she didn't piss me off as much as this next character, but we'll get into her. I think I do mention something about her in my prose. Yeah, I do. Jules Marshall, this bitch. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. A wealthy, popular, but racist girl who is Wendy's best friend and Maddie's longtime bully. She's responsible for the prank pulled on Maddie at prom. I'm gonna get into her so much later. But here we go. I'm gonna go into my pros and my cons and my overall opinion, and I'm gonna talk about my favorite and least favorite chapters. And for this book, I actually have a like two for each for favorite and least favorite chapters. So let's get into it. My pros are the characters. My first pro is the characters. I think all the characters were very unique and made sense to the story. Maddie having to hide her having to hide herself, and even before people knew, no one was standing up for her. I have a word missing, but I know what I meant. No one was standing up for her, and until they realized they could relate to her, which I felt like was annoying. Um, because Kenny has a sister named Callie, and like no one. I know Callie is younger, but like Wendy, Jules, like no, Jules, she's just a bitch, so she's not gonna stand up for anybody. But nobody really like stepped in to stop people bullying her. You know what I mean? Not until like it kind of made the school look bad because like in the synopsis it says there was a viral video that showed off the school's racism. There was like two in the book. I'm not gonna spoil what they are, but they're very crazy. Um, I also love that Kenny starts to shed his token black friend image towards the end of the book because he was definitely like the token black guy. He didn't even hang out with the other black kids. At first, when I was so I listened to the audiobook. First, when I was listening to the story, I thought he was the only black student because when they found out Maddie was black, they were going up to him like, "Oh, can you believe it?" And it's like, He's black. It was weird, but yeah. I talk about that in I think my least favorite chapter, uh, about that. But anyway, but yeah, I was glad he was like being less tokeny towards the end of the book. So that was a good change because I was like, sir, what's going on? But since he's a football star, I can. His dad is kind of like one of those. I don't know how to say it. Like the parents who live through their kids, or they say, "Oh, I do all this so that you could have this better." But it's kind of like not in like a way that they actually really care, but like a kind of feels like you owe me kind of way. That's what his dad's like. Um, Wendy was complicit, so I did talk about that here. To Jules' bullying and racism, and thought because her boyfriend was black, she wasn't racist either. Which, of course, I can't be racist. I have black friends. That kind of thing. Reminds me of racist liberals. Shaking my head. Um, Wendy was an opportunist and kept trying to make up for the bad things she didn't prevent. Well, she was an opportunist with her relationship with Kenny, because she thought she was gonna be hitting the big time and be with him on the draft. You know how they have those videos with the moms and stuff of seeing and the girlfriends are seeing which team they're gonna be on. So she thought she was about to hit the jackpot. So, she was very complicit and opportunist throughout her relationships. I think she did at the very end. I'm not gonna spoil it, though. She stood up for Maddie. Um she I think she did make up for it at the very end, but she should have stood up for Maddie all along. So I do whack her in my pro as well. Next pro is story and setting. I love the reimagining of Carrie as a biracial girl who is not only a religious parent but a racist one. I also love how Maddie transforms into learning more about her powers and how to control them, and growing to be more open. And I love that she learns more about Black history from Mrs. Morgan, Miss Morgan, Mrs. Morgan. I don't remember what the teacher's name was. She was I think she was Miss Morgan, and learns about the other half of her because her dad definitely told her, like, I'll give an example. He basically said that civil rights was done because Black people marched peacefully, and he did not tell her about all of the violence and you know that kind of thing that happened. And then Miss Morgan had to be told her and was like, "Hey, this is what actually happened. It wasn't like a peaceful thing for Black people to get their rights, and they want to put us back now with this damn administration." So there's that. I also love the setting being the South, where a lot of bad history is still hidden. I would know. I live in Virginia, and it makes sense they try to cover up the whole prom night tragedy, which is like the whole kind of like a backdrop of everything. If you read the original Carrie, they have it's like a Episcopal. I hope I said that that genre right. I hope I said that name right. But it's like a letter novel where it's like they have pieces of memos or letters or different things like that. And this one has oh well, that's the next part. I'm gonna talk about my pros. Um, but yeah, it's like the backdrop is they're talking about prom, the whole book until it gets to prom, and then they have a part after the prom. So let's get into that. I love the timelines and the podcast setup. So I love the modern uses of podcasts because it keeps it relevant without dating it. Although I feel like letters aren't dated to me. I like letters, but I don't. I know, of course, I don't write them, anymore. But I could. But I think it's still it's a good modern touch, you know, versus newspaper clippings or stuff like that. That is not as big now versus when the original Care was written. I also love the timeline switches that are made clear and easy to understand. I'm pretty sure it's just basically dated. They just tell you such and such date 2014, which is when um the prom, everything prom night and then the destruction, everything happened in 2014. But then pop you back up into I can't remember what year. Uh, this is what happens when you don't have the book; you just have the audiobook. I want to say it was 2022. The new setting with the podcast. I want to say. Um, and I like that that detail was taken from Carrie to have like the Episcopal. I really hope I'm saying that right. Novel still, but just in a modern way. My last pro is the descriptions. Tiffany D. Jackson did a great job with the descriptions in this book, especially during the part of the book when Maddie snaps, at prom night. It is very graphic, and you imagine everything very clearly. You will, which is terrifying but effective. So, uh, all of the things, all of the ways that the people are dying and all the destruction is very detailed. So, just a warning, if you want to read or listen to this audio, read the book or listen to the audiobook. It is very descriptive. It is very specific. So there's that. I have one con. One character never gets what they deserve. I won't spoil what happens to her, but Jules didn't get what she truly deserved to me. I say in my overall opinion, it might be the message, but as an author and a writer, I would have done her so much worse and loved it. LOL. Because she really deserved it. But I'm not going to spoil what happens to her. So let's talk about my favorite chapters and my least favorite chapters, and then my overall opinion. So my favorite chapter is part one, 4. I guess part one, chapter 4. Maddie finding her mother's journal. That was really cool, and I think starts working on her on controlling her powers more. I put I think because I probably did not write this note in time to like really remember, and I didn't want to rewind the audiobook. So there's that. But yeah, that was cool. Oh, actually, I have 3 favorite chapters. Okay, here we go. Part 2, chapter 12. Finally uses her powers on her dad and stand up for herself because he deserved it. That man was crazy, y'all. And then my last favorite chapter was part 3, chapter 29, which is the last chapter actually. And so it's like 2 podcasters, an American guy and an Australian woman. So the Australian woman calls out the town for racial issues and the town not taking responsibility. And no one treated her well and tormented her. And she never truly got to be herself and was punished for it. And Maddie will always be the villain no matter what. And that racism isn't fair. And she also called out the other podcast guy, like, you're a white guy, you wouldn't know anything about like what Maddie went through with the racism. And like you kind of and she did kind of say like he was kind of exploitative about the whole podcast is Maddie did it. Or what made Maddie did it. One of those. I have to get the book. And I could definitely know. It's like um I think the podcast was called Maddie Did It, and it's like kind of accusatory instead of like looking at the whole picture of like everything that led up to it. And of course she finally snapped. Like all these horrible things were happening to her. So that was a really great like ending to the book. Like to look at and to like reflect on. So my least favorite chapters were part 1, chapter 2. So the only black guy on the football team is bombarded with the knowledge about Maddie being half black, and people want his approval to the shock of Maddie being biracial. So that was weird. Uh, and I also talked about him being the token black guy and his distance from the other black people. I felt like that was weird. But then hearing how his dad acted during the book, he was like, he's like those, like how black people get out of the hood and then they don't want to associate with anybody back home ever again. That's the dad. Like and I'm not saying everybody from your past should be in your future, but yeah, he was weird as well. But I will say, like I said, towards the end of the book, he stepped out of that because he saw like the racist stuff happening and was like, you know what, this isn't right. So that was good. Okay, my last least favorite chapter was part 2, chapter 5. Oh, this is one of the racist things that happen and goes viral. Jules wears blackface and pretends to be Maddie Washington specifically. So that was fucked up. Kenny does finally stand up for himself and the fellow black students, though, so that was a good point. Um, but you know that Jules, She would have been. I don't know. I would have done something creative and cruel to her. I would have done something creative and torturous. Like she would have been in so much pain and agony. But that's just me. So there's that. So that's my favorite and favorite chapters. So let's get into my overall opinion. I really love this reimagined version of Stephen King's Carrie. I love that it had to deal. I keep having typos all the time. Yeah. I love that it dealt with racism and its consequences or lack thereof in some cases. This case. I loved Maddie got into her powers and realized she didn't have to be tortured by the townspeople anymore. No. I do like the ending is a little open because some characters go missing around the same time, so they could be together. I guess it's a little bit of a spoiler, but I didn't say which characters, so eh, got me there. I listened to the audiobook, but will definitely buy the physical book. I will. I loved it for the most part, but the one character didn't get what they deserved, in my opinion, so it wasn't perfect for me. But honestly, that's probably more realistic of how that character acted, even after everything. I would highly recommend it. I would give this book a 9 out of 10 just because that one character didn't get what she deserved, but it was perfect otherwise. But I think maybe that's the message in and of itself. That not everyone who is racist and hateful always gets what they deserve, unfortunately. So, yeah, that is uh I forgot the name of the book. The Weight of Blood. That's The Weight of Blood. And that's my opinion on it. Have you read The Weight of Blood? Let me know. So, I wrote a little story about a date between Maddie and Kenny. So, I don't want to say what timeline, whether this is in the book. I mean, in before the prom or after the prom. Maybe let's make it before the prom because I don't want to spoil anything about the ending because I think you should really read it or listen to the audiobook. So it's called Picnic Party because you know I love alliteration. So here it goes. Maddie could feel the threads between her and Kenny stronger than ever. So whenever she connects, when she does telekinesis, it feels like a thread. Like it feels like she's like tied. I guess like she's like I don't know how to describe it because I understand what she means by threads. So like you know how you can thread from one place to another. Like if my hands are threading to here, just imagine a thread in between here. That's what she talks about in the book. So whenever she's connecting during her telekinesis, that's what she says. Is she's having threads. Uh, this is why you should read the book because I feel like I'm not explaining it very well. Anyway, here we go. He was making himself a sandwich from the food they had packed for their picnic date. Maddie looked at Kenny in awe. How could someone so handsome and normal love her? Kenny smiled back at her. Are you going to eat? Or am I enough of a snack for you? He winked. Maddie blushed and giggled. You always know how to make me laugh. She picked up some chips and ate them one by one as she took in the scenery. It was a beautiful spring day with sunny skies and birds chirping. The trees in the forest looked big and proud. I love spending time with you, Kendrick. You make me feel so normal. Like I can just relax and be myself. Maddie kissed him on the lips and licked off mustard from his lips. You are normal, but everyone's normal is different. You aren't afraid to be who you are, and that's why I love spending time with you too, and why I love you. He embraced her tightly and she melted into his arms. I love you too. Maddie was so happy to finally find peace and love away from judging and bullying eyes. So yeah, that's my little, dream date if they would have had before the prom. And they do have like 3 scenes where they're alone. So there are nice scenes between them. Um, and once again, I'm trying not to spoil too much. But yeah, have you read The Weight of Blood, or will you read it after listening to my review? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Did you like Carrie? Did you like any of the movies? Let me know what you think, and I will see you all next week.